Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about the ironic self-own of whataboutism. Now, I think I've done a video about whataboutism before. I did not bother to double check, but I'm reasonably certain I did as part of my logical fallacies series. So whataboutism, as a quick refresher, basically involves attempting to deflect criticism by pointing to bad things that someone else / the other side has done, right? So, yeah, I mean, it might be bad that the Russians invaded Ukraine, but what about all the countries that the US has invaded? Sure, that's a legitimate criticism, right? The US invades a lot of countries, and it's extremely problematic. I'm an American, fuck that. Fuck this country for that, among other things. But it is an ironic self-own, right? It is an unintentionally ironic self-own. And I will explain what I mean by that. So the premise of whataboutism basically is that it runs on a critique of hypocrisy. The idea that if you believe one thing and do something different, then that you have betrayed your values and that is a bad thing. Now, most people generally agree, I think, that hypocrisy is not good. And I accept that. Totally fine. I have no problem with that. I will not make a different argument. But this is not just an argument about hypocrisy, right? It's not, if we stick with the Russia and US example, it's not the US claims to believe in national self-determination, and yet it invades Iraq, Afghanistan, it topples the government of Libya, etc., etc. We can go on and on and on with the incredibly lengthy list of governments and countries that the US has been involved in regime change. If that were the extent of the argument, it would be a critique of hypocrisy. Totally fine, totally straightforward. You say you believe in one thing, but you act as though you don't. You betray that set of ethics and values. Cool. Whataboutism is not that, though. It assumes that as the premise of its critique, but there's another element to it, which is, yeah, my side has done bad things, but what about the bad things your side has done? And this can be especially striking. There's a particular strand of whataboutism that I'm seeing right at this current moment. It is July 19th, if that's super important. But it's July 2025. In the United States, the big news story is the fallout from the Trump administration's unwillingness to release the Jeffrey Epstein files. Probably, I think it's a reasonable guess, because Donald Trump is named in them. For legal purposes, I'll say allegedly. Although it's not technically alleged, it's widely suspected, and in my view, probably correct. I don't know that. Obviously, I am not privy to the government's investigations into Jeffrey Epstein, and I'm not taking a position in this video on whether or not those files should be released, whatever it is. What I'm interested in is the rhetoric of the discourse that I'm seeing online about this. So, there's two sort of broad talking points that those trying to defend the Trump administration's position seem to be deploying. One is, well, what about Bill Clinton? He's probably in the Epstein files. Probably, yes, he probably is. I tend to agree with that. I think it's almost as likely that Bill Clinton is named in those files as that Trump is. I think that almost certainly there's a lot of powerful people on both sides of the political spectrum within the U.S., as well as people who are not particularly political. And to the credit of liberals and leftists that I'm seeing online, the standard response to that talking point seems to be, yeah, fuck him. If Bill Clinton is in the Epstein files, send him to jail. We don't give a shit. We would rather see him in jail than protect our team. And I think that's the only ethical response to this situation. But again, what I'm more interested in is the logic of the talking point itself, right? Oh, maybe we shouldn't release the Epstein files because Bill Clinton is in them. What that assumes as an ethical starting point is that Bill Clinton being in the Epstein files and by extension having sex with underage girls is a bad thing. Again, not going to debate that. I 100% agree with that talking point. I think there's a degree of arbitrariness to saying that one is inherently capable of making responsible decisions at a specific age, whether that's 18, whether that's 21, whether that's 16 for driving in the US, whatever it is. But that is the system that we currently have. And there are good reasons to be cautious about sexual predation of younger people. I 100% agree with that. And I think most people do. So, back to the logic of this rhetoric. If Bill Clinton is in the files, and that's a bad thing, then you're admitting that being in the files is a bad thing. And so if Trump is in the files, then that is also a bad thing. You are not really defending your team this way, right? You are saying it is a bad thing to be in the files, and therefore releasing those files and potentially harming people like Bill Clinton or Trump is a bad thing. That's essentially the argument here, right? There's no other real way of framing it. It is, in effect, it is a bad thing for someone to be in the files. Trump is trying to prevent the files being released, probably because he is in them. And so my side is doing a bad thing. The guy that I am defending, Donald Trump, is the bad guy in this scenario, even if Bill Clinton is also the bad guy in this scenario, right? Like, the one doesn't cancel the other out. It's just an admission that, like the other side, my side is bad. So that's one of the two main talking points. The second main talking point that I've been seeing is, well, why didn't the Democrats release them when they had control of the government? I mean, whether or not they should have, I don't know. I'm not a legal expert. I don't know the rationale for releasing or not releasing files like this, and I don't really care that much at the end of the day. But what this argument boils down to is, again, an ironic self-own, because it starts from the assumption that the Democrats not having released these files was a bad thing, that they should have done this, that it would have been better if they had. And that is somehow deployed as a defense of current Republican attempts not to release those files. Right? So that's the idea of the talking point, right? Democrats didn't do this thing that it would have been good if they had done. Therefore, somehow that makes it good for Republicans to not do this thing. Right? And you can see how that doesn't quite hold up to scrutiny, right? Because if it was bad for the other side to not have done a thing, then it's bad for your side not to have done the thing. right? Or not to currently do the thing when you have the opportunity, right? To resist doing the thing that it would have been good if the other side had done. If the thing itself, releasing the Epstein files, is figured as a positive thing, if releasing those files is presented as, here is something we should want to happen, then the critique that the other side did not do it in the past does not really explain or justify your side actively refusing to do it now. You are then, by the logic of that very argument, in which you say, the other side doing the thing that we are doing was bad, you are implicitly saying that you doing that thing is bad, or that your side doing that thing is bad, right? And this is the strange version of whataboutism that we currently are seeing in this debate, right? And not all whataboutism sort of runs on this economy, right? You can have a version of whataboutism where the thing you are critiquing in the other side is not precisely the same as the thing that you are being critiqued for, but it doesn't stand up quite as well, right? Whataboutism tends to work best when it is your side is doing the thing that you accuse my side of doing. And again, the problem with the fundamental logic of this is that if I am going to try and counter your critique of me by saying you have also done this bad thing, then I'm starting from the framework that I have done a bad thing. Your moral culpability does not excuse my moral culpability. But rhetorically, I am acknowledging and admitting that I have done a bad thing.